May I have your attention, please? Good evening. It is 6:30. Now it's time to call the Orangeburg County School District Board meeting to order. In compliance with the Freedom of Information Act, the news media, Times and Democrat, Advertiser Herald, and an agenda was provided for the public to see. At this time, we ask that we pause for a moment of silence. Let's remember those individuals in our various communities that are going through some difficulties, sickness, death. So let's please, ma'am, please, sir, let's remember them in our thoughts and our prayers. A moment of silence, please. Thank you very kindly. Next, we will ask that you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance given by our parliamentarian, Reverend Brown.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, we'll entertain a motion for the approval of our agenda for tonight's meeting.
Madam Chair, I move the approval of the agenda for September 22nd, 2020 at 6:30 p.m.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second that we approved our agenda for tonight's meeting. Are there any discussion or comments? If not, all in favor, let it be known by a show of hand. Any opposes? Dr. Quinn, are you there?
I'm in favor.
Thank you. Next, we will have the approval of the minutes. I will entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes for September 8th, 2020.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve of the minutes from September 8th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we approve our minutes from September 8th, 2020. Any discussion or deletion to our minutes? Hearing none, all in favor, let it be known by a show of hand. Dr. Quinn?
In favor.
Thank you very kindly. Next on our agenda, we have information items, our superintendent's update.
Madam Chair, members of the board, as always, it's good to be able to highlight students when some of our most challenging times. So as I've done in the past, I want to take an opportunity to share with you as I continue to go around and hear the excitement of our teachers and listen to even some of our students that I've ran into who express their feelings about how they're learning virtually and how they're kind of getting used to things. But I wish I could show you all the videos that I get. I get tens of them by the day. I had one yesterday that sent me a litany of videos, training videos that they created within their own school. And I was excited, and I had to send an email back just to see the excitement of the teachers, but also the principals also created training videos where they were sharing with each other different tips on how to deliver virtual instruction. So this school said they were initially concerned about the ability to do it. They said we had some teachers who were seasoned, had been around for a while, and maybe technology wasn't the best or high on their list. But they've adopted a motto that this year we can do virtually anything, is what their motto was. And it just warmed my heart to see the teachers finally settling in and grasping that concept. So if you would join me, I'd like to look at the screen, and I'd like to show you just a few highlights from one of our schools. I'm going to highlight Highly Hill Elementary School. And this was sent to me by Mr. Smith, the principal of Highly Hill, outlining what they've been doing and how their teachers are settling in and trying to adopt the new normal. Again, Madam Chair, members of the board, I don't ask these principals to make these videos. They are excited and say, listen, if we're in a virtual world, then let's take advantage and maximize that. So, you saw that from a school perspective. But this next video I want to share, we have all kind of learners. We have our early learners, we have our secondary learners, but we also have a very special group of students who desire to go into the technical field. So we have our career centers, and I was sent this video of a instructor at the Career Center, at Cope Career Center, actually teaching his automotive class. So I want to take an opportunity to share this with you. And this is just a short clip of how he's taken the virtual situation and then blended that into still teaching his students.
Next step, we gotta do what? Remember, it's been sitting, right?
What do we have
to do?
Take it out.
Take it out.
Wipe it
Wipe it clean first.
And this
And this one's kind of spiral, so it's a little aggravation trying to get it clean. But you want to wipe the dipstick clean.
Okay.
Okay?
Reinstall
it.
Make sure that it goes all the way back down the base of the dipstick too.
Reinstall it 2 to 3 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever the case may be.
All right.
What's the key thing that you need to do on the second check when you pull the dipstick out?
Lay it flat.
Exactly.
That's what
you want to do. You want to lay it flat so that you get an accurate read as to how much oil is on the tip of the dipstick.
Right now,
looking at this one, there's about a half a quart empty.
We're not
quite. We're about halfway in between the full and the empty and the add mark.
The
first dot that you see right here,
that's your
add mark.
The
second dot, that's your full mark. Okay? And from yesterday, I told you, whenever there's a difference from dot to dot, it's usually about how much? How much oil? One quart. When you're talking engine oil, from dot to dot is usually about 1 quart of oil that is short. Right now, it is still actually within the safe range because it's inside that crosshatch area. It's a little low, but it's still in the safe area.
So again, that's just a sample of again, you think about the career centers and how those students still getting their instruction. Our teachers are doing a great job. They're adapting and they're modifying. And if you couldn't see it, he had about 16 students. The little circles at the end were the students that were actually logged on during that particular class. So this is the second time I've had the opportunity to highlight COPE and what they were doing. But that was just something that jumped out at me whenever they sent that and shared. Because you wonder, well, how are students in those classes receiving their instruction? So you see there that they're still doing that. And my final celebration today is, as a principal, I wasn't able to receive many awards, national awards at that. But sometimes you have things that kind of fall in your lap, and when you think you're not making a difference, you realize that somebody, not just in the local community or even in the state, recognizes that. So I want to take an opportunity, and if you would join me in congratulating one of our own schools, Mellichamp Elementary School, because they have been named a National School of Promise by the NIET, the National Institute for Excellence in Teaching. So let me give you some background on this award, and I'll show you a short clip here. We had a virtual celebration when the individuals from NIET called and said, listen, there's only 2 schools in the country that were awarded this award. But more importantly, we don't give it out every year. We only give it out to the schools that are deserving in the years in which they deserve it. So nationally, I want to take an opportunity to, again, congratulate Mellichamp Elementary School for being named a NIET National School of Promise So if you turn your focus to the screen, you'll see some of that celebration that we shared with those teachers, and the excitement that they had when they were announced was, it warms your heart.
At NIT, we have a special award called the School of Promise Award. It honors those schools that are continuing to strive toward excellence and who are showing encouraging progress every step of the way. We don't always give out this award, but this year we are giving it to two special schools across the thousands of school partners across the country. And I'm proud to say today that Mellichamp deserves to be named as a School of Promise. And I'm here to you.
Yes.
Yes. I wish I could be there in person. But here is your NIT award that you'll be able to put up in your school. Dr. Foster and our district team has balloons to celebrate, but maybe even more exciting, you'll be getting a check from us for $5,000 to continue to support you.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, listen, I'm so excited. Dr. McQueen, thank you for recognizing us for this. We don't do anything for awards. The recognition that we get from this work is seeing our children become the greatest that they can possibly become. In my opinion, the only way you can be considered a school of promise is if you see students as children of promise.
But we finally said, you know what, it's time out for just buying programs. And we knew the teachers, we truly know teachers make the difference in the classroom. So when we started with the programs and we started building capacity in our teachers as well as in ourselves as leaders, because we can't stop growing. And so the one thing that I do love about NIET, it not only supports teachers, but it supports leaders.
So if you can, let's give them a round of applause. Thank you. It's always exciting to hear the great things that are going on and make sure that we show our public that our teachers are outstanding, but our kids are just as outstanding as well. So teachers at Mellichamp, keep it going. Hopefully we'll have 10 more on the list in years to come. But more importantly, our students continue to be the promise that we will have a better society moving forward because of you. So congratulations to those students and those teachers. As I've done historically, I've given the board an update as we continue to try to navigate through this pandemic on the disease activity report from DHEC. The latest report on the 14th showed that our numbers are shifting. In our spread, we were medium. In our number of tested cases, we're medium. And this should be in your packet under disease activity report. In our spread, we're low, but we're still high in our positive rates, and we're around 13%, and that was on the 14th of September. So the next report comes out on the 28th. With that being said, I want to ask for Nurse Paget to come up and give you guys some updates on the new reporting protocols and the new protocols district statewide and DHEC-wise in regards to the pandemic, but also some numbers. Last board meeting, I shared with you the numbers in the district as regards to employees and students who may have tested positive and or had to quarantine due to being in close contact. So we'll continue to update the board on those numbers. But please remember that these numbers there's a lag between what we get it first, and then we have to report that over to DHEC. So if Nurse Paget will please come forward with an update on the procedures and the status of how we are in Orangeburg.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening. So DHEC supplies school districts with regular updates based on new CDC guidance, and we have received some new updates within the last week. I'm going to bring those forward tonight. We're going to review isolation guidelines, safely ending isolation, quarantine guidelines, safely ending quarantine, reporting positive cases, and the changes that we've seen in reporting to cases in the classroom. So first of all, let's get right into isolation guidelines, and I'm sharing with you the updates. So The symptoms-based strategy is what DHEC is suggesting we use. So we're not testing folks after they've been diagnosed positive. We're using this symptoms-based criteria to get them back. So in order for isolation to end, there has to be at least 24 hours that have passed since the last fever without the use of fever-reducing medications. All symptoms have to have improved, and there's a new time frame, so this is a change for us. Previously, it was 10 days since the onset of symptoms, but now they're sharing that 10 days for mild to moderate illness with someone who is not immunocompromised, or 20 days for a severe or critical illness, or someone who is severely immunocompromised. Okay, and again, return to work or school should be determined by these guidelines, and DHEC does not recommend the retesting. Let's review what a close contact is tonight. A close contact is identified as someone within 6 feet of a positive case for 15 or more minutes during their contagious period. If someone is spending periods of time that add up to 15 minutes throughout the course of a day, they could be considered a close contact as well. So if you have a teacher who's coming up to a student 4 or 5 times during a class period, spending about 3 to 4 minutes with that child each time, and the teacher tests positive, then that particular student would be considered a close contact. Okay, quarantine periods, and this does get confusing sometimes. The guidance does change, but it is very specific to the individual situation. So a close contact with no further contact to the positive case would require a 14-day quarantine. Okay, so the total quarantine period for that person would be 14 days. And an example of that would be if we had 2 school employees working closely together repairing an HVAC system, and the next day one of those employees became ill and tested positive, then the other employee they were working with would be a close contact and would need to quarantine at home for 14 days and monitor for symptoms. Additional close contact while in quarantine means that someone's quarantine started, but a day or a few days later they had an additional exposure, and so they would have to extend their quarantine from that last contact date. And that does get a little confusing. So an example for that would be if an employee spouse tests positive, he's able to isolate at home away from his spouse, but a few days later a child within that house also tests positive, then our employee would have to extend their quarantine period. Okay? And then a household contact, meaning someone that lives within the house and isolation is not possible. So if we have an employee who's a teacher who tests positive, an employee's child tests positive and she provides direct care to her child, then she would have to allow that child's isolation period to end, which would be approximately 10 days. She would have to stay at home during that time, and then she would have to quarantine 14 days after that isolation period ended. So that employee could be out 24 days, okay? All right, so an individual who has been told to quarantine after an exposure has to complete their quarantine period even if they have a negative test. Right? So the entire 14-day period of quarantine needs to be completed before they return to work. And testing cannot shorten that quarantine period. DHEC is requiring school nurses to report all positive cases associated with schools. We have to do that within 24 hours, and that's to assist them in their investigations and their contact tracing. Responding to cases in the school, so this is a big update for us. Close contacts must be excluded if there's a positive case within a class. All other students and staff in that classroom would remain together, cohorted together, and they would be monitored for 14 days. We'd check temperatures and screen them for symptoms. Any students or staff members who show symptoms would be excluded from school and would have to complete an isolation period at home. And DHEC is recommending that if 3 or more COVID positive cases are identified within a classroom within 14 days of each other, that the school should consider excluding all the children in the classroom for 14 days. And that is a change. That is an updated change for us. We looked at our numbers. We pulled some information together. Student Services worked with the HR department. And currently, as of yesterday afternoon at 3 o'clock, we have 1 student currently in isolation, 4 recovered, 1 student currently under quarantine, for a total of 6 involved students. Faculty and staff, we currently have 3 staff under isolation, 33 that have recovered, 11 are currently under quarantine, and 57 have resolved, for a total of 104 employees.
Thank you, Nurse Pageant. Do we have any questions for Nurse Pageant?
Questions for Nurse Pageant? Are there questions? Comments? Dr. Brunson?
Yes, and this is something that has not been clear with me. So if you have tested positive and you've done your quarantine, you do not have to have a negative test to return to work.
That's correct. You do not have to have a negative test to return.
Okay.
That's a change.
It is.
Pelzer?
It's new.
Because I mean, I know a couple of folk who went through the first test and did the 14-day quarantine and got tested a second time, but was still positive.
That's correct. What DHEC and the CDC are recommending is that we use the symptoms-based strategy, that we follow the isolation guidelines with either 10 or 20 days, depending on the severity of the case and the immunostatus of the person who is positive, to determine the best time for them to come back. There are a few exceptions to that, and that would be a physician making a call on whether someone would need to delay isolation beyond that 20 days. Yes, ma'am.
Pelzer?
Yes, Madam Chair. I see contagious period here. I know what contagious is, but I'm trying to figure out what is the contagious period with the COVID-19 virus? Is it the day you find out, or what is it? Or is it when you get certain symptoms? What is it?
So the incubation period, once you've been exposed to COVID, is 2 to 14 days.
Okay.
So people can show symptoms anywhere from 2 to 14 days after their exposure. The average is about 5.4 days. So most people who are going to show symptoms are going to show symptoms on about that 5th or 6th day.
And that's the contagious period?
The contagious period for COVID is 10 days once symptoms start. So after symptoms start. So you can be contagious 2 days prior to the onset of symptoms, and you can continue to be contagious for up to 10 days after symptoms start. So it's about a 12-day period.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Other question? Dr. Quinn, questions or comment?
No, ma'am, I think Mr. Hayes done a great job.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, thank you very kindly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nurse Pageant.
Yes, sir.
And she does a great job of keeping up with the changes in the DHEC protocols, but also updating myself and senior staff on the things happening throughout the whole entire county. And to do that over a span of 32 schools and the number of employees that we have is a tremendous task. And there's been times I had to call Nurse Pageant late at night just to kind of get information. But I want to take an opportunity to thank her for continuing to track those things and keeping us informed. So if you could just join me in thanking her for the great job that she does. Now, the back to school plan update. As you guys are aware, we were looking at September 28th as our date and to begin any type of face-to-face. But I wanted to share with you as we continue to take this data and make sense of it, but also engage our teachers and our parents to get feedback. Had opportunity today to engage with a group of teachers on a Zoom call, just to get their input and get their thoughts on certain things. I can't be in all schools, and I'm not there as often as they are. So it would be malpractice in some instances if I didn't reach out to some teachers. But we've done that with a few different cohorts. Today I had our self-contained teachers of self-contained students on a Zoom call, but I know our instructional staff has also engaged our teachers of the year. We've also engaged our principals and also our guidance counselors. And you'll hear more about that survey data. But I wanted to share with you the survey data that we collected here, that we sent out to our parents and also our teachers, just to get some feedback on a couple of things, on virtual instruction, but also their comfort level as we scale information across this district. So I want to start with our parent survey. We sent out a parent survey, and that closed. Actually, we left it open a little longer. But we only had 476 parents respond to the survey, and we wanted to ask a few questions. The training for virtual instruction, how they felt. Make sure I get on my correct page here. Parents, we asked the parents, how do they feel about the training for virtual instruction? 63% of parents felt like it met or exceeded their expectations. 37% said that they felt like it did not meet their expectations. I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I got my pages mixed up here when I dropped my folder. We look at teacher effectiveness. They asked how effective was their teacher in delivering virtual instruction. 27% felt like they were extremely effective. 52% felt like they were effective. Okay, now that I have my pages in order. Teacher effectiveness. Please rate your teacher's effectiveness in leading instruction through our virtual platform. Of the 447 responses, 27% said that they felt like their teacher's effectiveness was extremely effective, and 52% felt like they were effective, but 21% felt like they were not effective at all. Student engagement. Please rate your students' engagement in the virtual classroom. So as you see here, of the 447 responses, 167 felt as though their students were engaged, or extremely engaged, and 145 felt as though their students were engaged. But we had 76 said somewhat disengaged, and 86 said that they were disengaged. We asked about support. Our family has been supported efficiently and effectively when we have experienced technology issues. 177, and that equals about 38%, felt like they were, and 109, 23% felt like they were not. But 39% felt as though it was inapplicable because they had no issues at all and had no need to call to get technology support. We also asked the families how they felt they were practicing the social distancing and health and safety precautions. My family is practicing appropriate social distancing, wearing masks, and following all recommended procedures related to COVID. Of that, 90% said that they agree or strongly agree that they were following those. Somewhat disagree was 4%, and strongly disagree was 6%, making up 10% that disagree that their families were following those particular protocols. Returning in person. Our current date for returning in-person instruction has been communicated as September 28th. Are you personally comfortable with your student returning in a hybrid model at this time? 84% of the individuals that responded said yes, 16% said no. I want to qualify this question here. Those individuals that responded to this question were only the parents that did not already sign up for virtual instruction. So we pulled those individuals out of this particular question. So this is not all 447, only those who did not sign up for virtual instruction. So as I read that data, that was an interesting point. So of those who did not sign up, 16% still did not feel comfortable returning. Again, this is not all. This is just those parents who were not signed up for virtual to the end of the semester already. So we asked our teachers. We had about 290 teachers complete this survey. We asked about the training and support for virtual instruction this year. And 9% said that it exceeded their expectations. 56% said that it met their expectations. And 35% said that it did not meet their expectations. We asked them to rate their perceived effectiveness in teaching students through the virtual platform. 12% said that they felt like they were extremely effective, and 73% felt like they were effective, and only 12% felt like they were not effective in teaching in the virtual platform. We asked teachers about the schedule. The district-wide synchronous schedule offers appropriate time for teaching and learning. 80% of the teachers felt like they provided appropriate time for teaching and learning, while 20% disagreed with that of those who responded to this survey. We asked teachers if I've been supported efficiently and effectively when I experienced technology issues. 82% believed that they were, and 17% felt like they were not, and 1% said other. So I'm not sure what that other actually represents at this time. So another important question is we needed to find out if our folks were practicing health and safety guidelines and social distancing. So we asked, I'm practicing appropriate social distancing, wearing masks and covering and following all recommended procedures related to COVID-19. 73% said that they strongly agreed, 22% agreed, and only 1% said that they somewhat disagreed. We asked about their coworkers. So if their coworkers, were your coworkers practicing social distancing? Were your coworkers wearing masks and following those health and safety guidelines? The respondents said that 57% strongly agreed that their coworkers were. 34% agreed. 6% said that they somewhat agree, and only 2% disagreed, and 1% strongly disagreed that they were not, that their coworkers were not following those guidelines. And the final question we ask is, are you comfortable returning to face-to-face instruction, some sort of face-to-face instruction, if we decided to go back on September the 28th? Of those respondents, 18% said that they were comfortable, but 51% said that they were not comfortable, and 30% said that they may be comfortable if additional procedures were put in place. So of that total, about 81% said that they were not or would feel comfortable if some other procedures were put in place. So, Madam Chair, that is the update as far as the survey that we asked. And again, we encourage, whenever we send out a survey, we truly want to hear back from our community, because it helps us make the best decisions moving forward. It helps us get a pulse on how this pandemic and the decisions we make affect our parents. I know it hadn't been an ideal circumstance for anyone. It's been an adjustment. Some have adjusted better and quicker than others. Some may still be adjusting. There may be other outside circumstances that are affecting individual families and parents and students, for that matter. And I wanted to make sure that individuals understood that we hear that, and we're trying to make those adjustments and considering all things. And we'll continue to do that. So I know everybody wants to know, well, what is the plan? Well, I have a meeting scheduled for Thursday with the State Department of Education to discuss our back-to-school plan and what that entails, and we'll continue to look at things as we move forward and hopefully have to, if we have to move in a direction, it may be a quick turnaround to certain things, or it may be a short notification. So I'm going to ask for folks' patience. I know people need to plan. But as I said when I first got here, this is a circumstance where we have to learn, unlearn, and relearn, and it may happen at a short notice. So I do have that meeting to follow with the State Department, and hopefully I can have some information. If I get some clarity between now and then, I will notify this community as quickly as I possibly can with the best decision, and hopefully the right decision for the masses. And my goal is 100%. Hadn't made that yet, but I'm still searching and trying to get 100% satisfaction from everybody in this community to make sure that I'm meeting the needs of all of their individual circumstances. So that's our goal. We're still falling short, but we're still working towards meeting that goal. With that being said, Madam Chair, members of the board, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Question for Dr. Foster? Comments?
Yes,
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I have a question.
Okay, Dr. Quinn, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. Just a question about the people who've signed up for continuous online instruction versus those that have chosen so far to go back face to face. Is that all carved in stone that they've signed up for several weeks ago, or is it going to be another for those who perhaps signed up for face-to-face who do not feel like it's comfortable now, or they've been given the opportunity, since it's been a little bit longer, to sign up for online instruction only?
Well, Dr. Quinn, we'll give an update under curriculum instruction, but however, we did have to set a close date, and we did extend that a little bit as well, because it's difficult for us to continue to kind of put a solid number on things, so we can continue to plan. I think trying to be accommodating to our community has, in honesty, has set us behind a little bit in trying to get those solid numbers, because we did extend that, which has put us behind the 8 ball, and I'm fine with that, as we've had the opportunity to really give those individuals who missed that window an opportunity to come back and be included on that waiting list or gather their wishes. So yes, sir, we're continuing to monitor that, but right now we did have to put a close date on that so that we can begin preparations and planning, and again, the increased numbers that we have now were shocking. If I can say if I can quantify that in the best phrase for me, I didn't know we would have that many individuals for online, which has again itself allowed us to go back to the planning table and have to spend multiple hours on how we are able now to do this for the large number of people who are requesting Orangeburg Online. But we'll figure it out. We have a good team of people, and with the community's continued patience and support, we'll get it where it needs to be, so we can ensure health and safety for the majority, if not all, of our students and teachers. But we'll give you an update on that as well, Dr. O'Quinn. I'll be happy to answer any more questions that the board may have.
Other questions or comments? Other questions or comments? If not, we want to thank Dr. Foster for his update and Nurse Paget for her update to us. And also, we just want to say hats off to the Holly Hill Elementary School Career Center, Mellichamp Elementary, for the award that they were given. I saw this on TV last night, so we are very proud of them, and hopefully we'll have other schools that will do the same. So let's give all of them a hand. Thank you. Keep up the good work. Next, we have curriculum and instruction update.
Madam Chair, board members, and Dr. Foster, thank you for allowing us to provide this curriculum update to you. I'd like to share with you some information regarding curriculum and instruction as it relates to the Gifted and Talented program. The GT department offered a Gifted Galaxy on September the 9th to our families. It was intended to share information to our stakeholders, to introduce the staff, the programs, give some additional information about virtual instruction, as well as to communicate that the special classes for GT began on the first day of school and the pullouts began on September the 9th. These are our school sites for gifted and talented. You'll see those schools listed for elementary as well as middle that have the pullout model. Those students are provided with GT instruction for a portion of the day. And then you'll see our special class model in the identified schools, and those students are receiving those services for a full day. By school, you'll see the number of students at each site by elementary, with a total of 78 students for the pullout model. Our middle schools, our total is 70, and again, this is for the pullout model. And also our special class model, which is again full day instruction, with 60 at the elementary level and 104 at the middle school level. Our gifted and talented enrollment for grades 3 through 8, and you'll see that information by grade, and our total is 284 students. And for 9 through 12, we have 188 students. The Gifted and Talented program has a referral and screening process. There is a testing window. That testing window is from September 21st through October 2nd for grades 2 through 8. At each school, there is a testing coordinator, and there is an application that will need to be completed either by the administrator or the teacher or the parent. There is no need for an application to be completed if a student is referred by the administrator or by the teacher. We want all of our stakeholders to know where they can access the application. It is online, and it is under the quick links where it states parent student resources, and you're able to pull up that form. However, we also want our stakeholders to know that the application can be provided at the school, so you can fill out the application there. Again, we want our stakeholders to be aware of this information, be aware of the timeline, so that those students that need to partake in that screening have the opportunity to do so. The GT program is also offering premium tutoring by Mr. John Ott, who is Orangeburg County School District's gifted and talented itinerant teacher. He is our own, and we are honored to have him to provide this opportunity to our students, as he is not only a graduate of the Governor's School, but he is also one of very few persons in our state to have a perfect score on the SAT and the PSAT. And yes, he is an Orangeburg County certified teacher, and we are so grateful for him. Additionally, we want you to know that if you need additional information regarding this tutoring or the screening, please reach out to Ms. Priscilla Hollington, who is our GT coordinator, and her number is listed there, 803-534-8081, and the extension is 1110. Please, we want all of our stakeholders who have this interest in the screening or in the tutoring to please let us know. And then I'd like to transition to Orangeburg Online. We currently have 6,051 students who are currently registered for Orangeburg Online. We had 72 parents to request to unenroll, and we currently have 36 students who are on our waiting list. As you heard Dr. Foster mention, we had focus groups where we wanted to hear from our stakeholders who are serving our students. Those focus groups are listed, and we wanted to share this as a model. You'll see in column 1, and this is real school data from one of our schools, where you'll see the number of teachers, the grade level, the number of students based on the teacher that selected in person, the number of students that selected virtual, and then the class totals. Again, this is real-time data from one of our schools. And then you will see the Teacher of the Year focus group indicating their grade level and their level of comfort as it relates to the return to school. From this focus group, we had 18 to communicate yes and 12 to communicate no. From our professional school counselors focus group, you'll see the grade levels identified, and 17 to communicate yes and 9 to communicate no as it relates to their level of comfort. And then finally, our principal group, you'll notice the grade levels as well as, again, their comfort level, with 15 stating yes and 14 selecting no.
Ms. Carter-Sims, could you go back to that slide? I wanted to clarify something if we could. Question number 2, it talked about comfort level. We wanted to find out, and I want to give some clarity to the community here. Some school districts are across this state, because they were in the same situation that we were delivering instruction with students in front of them, but also having students at home. And I know that was mentioned before. I know now Greenville County, Charleston, Berkeley, and some other school districts, because of their numbers, they would have their students come in and small groups, and they would sit them in their rooms in their computer. The teacher would teach using the virtual platform, but also have students at home, and that was considered virtual. So I asked the State Department, well, that's not what you mentioned, what you approved, and it was expressed to me that, well, it was misinterpreted, that would be considered a virtual option, where you had maybe 5 or 6 students sitting in front of you, but all the instruction came through the virtual platform. So a teacher in a video that was showed to me from a neighboring school district had the teacher in front of the classroom teaching on the actual laptop device, where she had 4 or 5 students in front of her, but on the screen you would see the rest of that teacher's class. And so I asked for clarity, and they said, well, because the teacher only has to create one lesson, they don't have to create an in-person lesson and a lesson for students at home. But also they made a good point that I didn't consider. When they looked at their virtual numbers and having to switch students into an all virtual and switch teachers, that required them to have many of the students who had gotten used to a teacher to lose and go to a brand new teacher, shift grades, shift power schools. So in order to keep consistency, that's what those teachers actually requested to do. And from what I understand, it was working fairly well. So we wanted to ask our teachers that question. Are you comfortable with possibility of simultaneous teaching online at home and physically in the classroom? So that's what that model is asking for, to gauge our teachers in that regard. So I wanted to make sure that I cleared that part up. So we asked those 3 focus groups that particular question in regards to the instructional delivery model. Again, just trying to make sure we get input from our teaching staff.
Also with a computer. They have the plexiglass and that kind of thing. Is that something that we have done in our schools now, or are we ready for that?
No, ma'am, we have not put the plexiglass, so I had a conversation with the State Department today, and I have requested that the State Department provided that to some schools, and I've been told that we'll get some as quickly as possible. But I have requested that from the state superintendent. As another safety protocol, we do have face shields for all of our students currently, but that adds an additional safety protocol. So I have, as of today, said I've requested it and haven't gotten it, but have been assured that that PPE should be on its way or should be coming by the support of the State Department.
Yes, because when I saw that, that made me, it showed that it was totally different. Since we're in a pandemic, we have to make sure that the classrooms are not the same as they were before. And with them sitting in the plexiglass with the mask on, teachers standing and had hers on too, it looked a little safer, I thought.
Yes, ma'am, you're right. Mr. Grant and our principals have submitted a survey, so we have the numbers of how many we would need for every single one of our classrooms. So that information, Mr. Grant, when did you submit that information to the State Department?
September 11th is when we had this submitted. The state was accepting responses all the way through September 18th. I received an email from Elsie Montgomery today that they had no issue with our submission and everything. We should hear by the end of this week what all we need.
Thank you.
Question, Dr. Brunson?
Just a quick question about the all-day model. These students that are in the high achievers placed by administrators with support, are these students who have not met all of the state criteria?
Dr. Brunson, I'll have to look into that and get you an answer. Okay? You're welcome.
Madam Chair. My question is, how do we came up with the pull-out model compared to the special class model?
Ms. Omar, that has to do with whether they met the state requirement or the district requirement, and I will again have to get those specifics because there is an A, B, and C. Students can either score in the A or B category. There are several different criteria, but I will get that to you and provide a response.
Okay, so the pull-out might be district and the special might be state, you're saying?
There are different criteria for qualifying for GT. Some students can be recommended in, some students can be tested in. And so what I can do is get the specifics on what those numbers look like and how those students were actually qualifying for GT.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Idella?
Madam Chair. Dr. Foster, I'm looking at how many of these teachers were polled to say that they were comfortable teaching online at the same time at school with the students there and teaching online.
So what we did, Mrs. Carson, was we polled those small focus groups. Those were your teacher of the year, your principal, and your guidance counselors first. We did that first because I wanted to get an idea from that cohort of individuals. If you recall, I polled those teachers of the year for some other earlier data because they are mainly your teacher leaders, and we'll bring forth that information. So what we would do is also, again, now we've got that data, we may put one out to the larger community as well. As I spoke with our special ed teachers, our self-contained special ed teachers today. So I wanted to start with small cohorts to get an idea of where they were, and then we would then take that to make sure we were getting the questions were worded appropriately, and then send it out to the larger masses of teachers to get a larger test group. So that's our next steps.
Then.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's kind of rough out there teaching online, and then you have students in the classroom with you. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Also, I wanted to address Dr. Brunson and Mrs. Ulmer's question as well in regards to gifted and talented. I've asked instruction we're going to go back and look at our gifted and talented model as a whole. And how that functions, how it's been functioning in the past, and how we can make sure we enhance that and identify those students who are ready for the next level of work. So we first of all had to give an update on what the Gifted and Talented program is now and what it has been. But the reason I wanted to do that is we're going to intentionally go back and start to reevaluate our Gifted and Talented program across the district. To be perfectly honest with you, we had 3 separate school districts that did it 3 different ways. So if I have to be honest to this board and this community, I can't say without a level of certainty that we don't have a certain specific Gifted and Talented program. But now is the time with consolidation, those things happen. So we have to go back and look at that program and make sure that we're maximizing, but not only the delivery of instruction, but the identification of those students and where they're placed and the function within their school. So yes, ma'am, that's a pertinent point, but we wanted to give you all the history of that.
And also, Dr. Foster, in doing that, if there is a local criteria, I'm not sure that all 3 of the districts had a local criteria for placing students. So if we do that, then we certainly need to look at the local criteria. That becomes countywide.
Yes, ma'am. That evaluation will include all of that local identification, placement, function, pull out versus all day. All of that will have to be considered. Yes, ma'am.
Pelzer.
Madam Chair, are all of our gifted and talented students being taught by certified gifted and talented teachers?
Yes, ma'am. All are GT endorsed.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Altman?
My question is about premium tutoring. This is geared toward GT students?
Yes, ma'am. It is.
What if a child or a student was recommended for GT and opt out of GT? Will they still have access to the tutoring or not?
The tutoring is now for the GT students through that premium tutoring, and that is just a term that they are using for that group of students, but we do have SAT and ACT support for students outside of the GT program. So it's not just for GT students.
And that's in grades 6 through 8 as well?
For the ACT?
The PSAT, I see here critical reading and PSAT and SAT test prep grades 6 through 8.
Yes, ma'am. So that is for GT.
Okay.
And then for our non-GT students as well, there is support for them also.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that during the school day for them as well?
Yes, ma'am. It's during the school day, and then we also have the opportunity with Edgenuity to couple that with the teacher being the primary source for that support with ACT and SAT, and then Edgenuity being a supplement to that support.
So if a child or a parent wants to inquire about this, just take Ms. Hollington?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
for
thank you.
GT, yes, ma'am. For non-GT students, then they would go through their guidance counselor, their professional school counselor, so that they can have access, because the district has purchased an Edgenuity license for every 9th through 12th grade student.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Altman, I want to address something. If there's a student that is opting out of GT, I want to personally talk to that student and that parent. So that's the first thing. I hope we don't have individuals who are opting out of gifted and talented, because if they have that academic ability, we want to make sure that they're soar, and if they're afraid of that challenging environment, we want them there. So I want to personally tell instruction, if there's a child that opts out of schools, please, I want to speak to that parent and that student to hopefully encourage them to maximize and be the best that they can be, and not shy away from being the great student and showing their God-given academic talent. So we definitely, and I believe that may be why the numbers may be lower, because we have students opting out. That's just not a culture that I want. I want those students who can go to be in that situation where they're able to be challenged.
Because, Madam Chair, because one concern that I've heard from a parent or parents is that there are a lot of projects being given, and they do the content classes during the day, and then they're up like late at night trying to finish the other assignments from GT.
Yeah, I can't speak with any level of certainty on that. What I imagine that a gifted and talented program has a little elevated rigor.
Right.
I'm sure that it probably does. And and the expectations may be on a higher level, and it should be. But in doing that, we can give students the support that they need, and not run away from, those things that may scare them. We can support them through that. But I just want to encourage them to stay on that track if they have that academic ability.
Ms. Edwards?
Yes, Dr. Foster. I guess what I'm trying to find out about is the teaching, what you talked about, maybe doing the teaching in the classroom and online. Currently, right now, there are like 550 people listening in to us tonight. And a lot of them, I think, are listening about some of them are teachers, because I got calls about this, about what are we exactly saying? If you had to tell them right now, would they have to do both of those, teach children in the classroom and online? What would you tell them?
What I'm saying right now is, given the numbers, that option is on the table. Okay. If not, that's a whole 6,000 students is more than 55% of our entire student population. Doing that and making sure we can social distancing, every option has to be on the table and be considered. From the small cohort of folks that we've polled, the majority of them are okay with it. It's not ideal by any circumstance, but it's not like they're standing in front of a classroom. Really, they're continuing to deliver their virtual instruction. It's just that they have maybe 4 or 5 students in front of them while the others are at home. So it's difficult for a teacher to stand at a board and teach those students and then have to turn a camera to the board. But if the teacher is sitting there watching that screen and teaching, utilizing those same techniques that all of our teachers have been practicing for the last 4 or 5 weeks, continuing to enhance that, but you have a student there. And then once those students at home are given their assignments to work, then that teacher then would have those students in front of her doing the same work and completing their assignments. So, I'm going to have to ask for considerations again for our teachers. At some point, what is that going to look like when you have 50% of your students on virtual that still have to have instruction, and those teachers who are singletons in many of our smaller schools, or they're unique in their content area like Spanish? How do we do that? Is what we've been trying to toss around, and what those options would look like. We've tried to consider a number of different things to make that our last resort, but I don't want to mislead individuals and say that option is off the table. I think it's prudent upon me as a superintendent to be honest and upfront to folks to say we're considering all of that, including that option as well.
Well, I think they appreciate you answering it the way that you did. You telling them it's a possibility, it could be, and I think that's what they want to know, what the options might look like. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? If not, thank you. Are you finished, Ms. Carter-Sims?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you
Thank
very kindly. All right. Next, we have Student Services update.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Board of Trustees.
Good morning.
I present to you our very own Mr. Haywood John, Director of Student Services, Mrs. Lakeisha Lawrence, Parent Engagement Facilitator, and Mr. Craig James, Director of Orangeburg Alternative School. They will present information on alternative education.
Thank you, Dr. Callaway. Madam Chair, Board of Trustees, Dr. Foster, we see it as a need to reflect and reassess our approach to alternative education. In so doing, we intend to centralize our alternative school program. Let me get to it. I'll speak on it right now as I pull it up. But we have 3 programs operating in our school district: at the Star Center for Learning and COPE, at the Technology Center, which is the Orangeburg County Alternative Program, and also at the Technology Center, the Evening Academy. And you're going to hear a new name for that. The mission of our centralized alternative program, which will be site-based at the Nelson C. Nitz Education Center, is to maximize the potential and to release the potential of all of our students that are in need of alternative placement. You're going to hear shortly today about 3 programs that have now become one And the name of that program is going to be called the Transformation Academy for Learning and Life. I want to take a moment now to allow for the director or coordinator of our after-school or alternative program through the Evening Academy. She's now going to speak for the Star Center for Learning's program, Middle Grades Matter and Jumpstart. Ms. Lakeisha Lawrence.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Foster. In this day and age, we know that one size does not fit all. Alternatives are definitely needed. Even today during the pandemic, we are all experiencing alternatives. And so I asked the question, what does alternative mean? So it means other, it means different, it means another possibility. It does not mean wrong, it does not mean bad. And so the Transformation Academy for Learning and Life is a setting that gives students another possibility for academic success. So looking at MGM, Middle Grades Matter, and Jumpstart, which serve 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students, these are students who are over age. Those are the students who, based on the referral process, these are students who must have passed at least 2 out of 4 content areas for the previous school year. They have to have minimum or no discipline referrals. They have to possess a strong desire to advance in their education, because these are students who are moving in 1 year, 2 years. And then also they have to have missed no more than 10 days in the previous school year and have to read at least on a 5th grade level. So some of those students may also be referred short-term for discipline from the hearing officer, but all of those students will be required to attend summer school sessions for 6 weeks. So the long-term students who will remain and complete 2 years within 1 will be considered long-term, and those who are referred by the hearing officer will be considered short-term. And now Mr. Craig James will talk about Refocus Academy.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Foster. It is truly a pleasure to stand before you today to represent what we're trying to do here at Transformation Academy for Learners and Life. I am proud to be the director of what we're going to call Refocus Academy. Why Refocus Academy? As we look at the papers and what's going on in the news and here in our community, it seems like a lot of our kids have lost focus. In the past, students were referred to the alternative school only through a district level hearing. But we want to broaden the horizon and offer some services and support to our students. By doing that, we want to also see if we can get repeaters from 9th and 10th grade. Repeaters meaning those who do not have at least 5 credits to go to the 10th grade, those who do not have at least 10 to go to the 11th grade. We want to bring them together, or try to, by offering this option to the principals and the parents. Refocus Academy will allow them to have rigor in the classroom, a smaller learning environment, but it also will help them with our wraparound services. Our social worker, mental health counselors there play an essential role. We also want to look at doing daily mentoring for our students, just to encourage them and get them back on track. The great thing about it is being in a impoverished area, if the kids start at Refocus Academy, they will continue also through summer school for 6 weeks at no charge. That way parents can, and students will have an opportunity to catch up with their peers, get back focused, and we can improve the graduation rates at our 8 high schools. I sent the information and data out to the 8 high school principals. We currently have 114 students who fall into what we're trying to do as far as Refocus Academy. The largest was OW with 44 students. Lake Marion had 31. There were representation from each school, but we really want to look at the possibility of coming together, putting all of our alternative settings in one place, that way we can offer experience to the kids to be productive citizens, get back focused, get back to their home schools, and we just want to try to make this happen as soon as possible. It's been a pleasure to work with Dr. Calloway and Mr. John, spearheading this project, working with Dr. Williams and Ms. Lawrence. We worked hard. We went to NICS, pretty much mapped out what we want to do, looked over some things, talked about the wraparound services. So we're looking forward to the Transformation Academy of Learners in Life and also Refocus Academy. Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, we have Beyond the Bell Academy, which is formerly known as the Evening Academy. And this is a high school program that provides a flexible learning environment for students in the 11th and 12th grade. These students are also overage. They are between the age of 16 to 20. We do know by law that students can stay in school until they're 21 years old. And so we are offering an alternative setting for them. However, it is not for chronic discipline behaviors. They will use Edgenuity online learning curriculum. These students do have to be referred and go through the intake process, just as the other two programs as well. Long-term students have to remain in the program until they complete the requirements. These students will still continue to graduate from their home school, but they will receive their instruction from the Beyond the Bell Academy. And then short-term students may be referred by the hearing officer as well, and those students must complete all the requirements necessary in order to transition back to their home school. And so those are the three programs in our Transformation Academy for Learning and Life.
Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you guys. They did a great job. And I want to kind of bring you guys some clarity as I've worked with them. As I've traveled the district and tried to learn about the existing programs and how we function in every aspect of the school, I realized that we had alternative settings in three parts of the district, well, two parts of the district. But what was most shocking to me and is what kind of prompted me to pull these group of great individuals together to discuss how we're providing services to all children is that last year we had students who were in the Holly Hill area that were middle school students that may not necessarily have had access to the MGM program that was housed at the Star Center because of transportation restrictions. So those students were in a quasi-intermediate program that was housed at the alternative school here in Orangeburg because we couldn't get them there with the high school students. So there are a various number of programs that we had that were ongoing that were segmented across the county. And due to the size of the county, some students were denied opportunities just because of transportation. I said from day one, all means all. Shouldn't matter where you live, shouldn't matter how much money you have or don't have. Everybody deserves an opportunity to, if I fail behind, to catch up. So we had an opportunity where we have facilities in this district that are probably better centrally located and are large enough to house multiple programs that can also support one another. Additionally, by bringing these programs to a central location, it gives access to students across the county, but also gives us an opportunity to leverage our resources. And instead of having multiple teachers repeated over different areas, we're able to bring them together and maybe leverage the resources of an instructional expert for these students and for those who have passion for at-risk students. So that's the gist of how this came about. So I challenge this group to not only go look at the facility, but also come up with a program that was not centered around behavior. You know, you don't educate behavior, you educate children. You teach behavior. You don't tell students or believe, you know better. I don't say that anymore because some students maybe not know. If once you tell them, they'll do exactly what you asked them to do. It's just that I didn't know that that's what you needed me to do. So that's what we're trying to centralize these alternative programs, but also make sure we're providing access to all students. And I couldn't do that for students in one segment of this county with that program located on the other end of the county. So in essence, I'm asking, and this is not a move, I would need the board's consideration to do this. But I wanted to bring forth this option to the board in order to allow us to move forward and and moving forward, when you have a new setup, maybe that's a good time to have a new name so we can start afresh. And many people that may have had a negative stigma on certain things will understand that this is new. It's here. This is what our focus is. So, Madam Chair, members of the board, I would ask for your consideration to allow us to move forward with the understanding that we're trying to merge all of our alternative programs together in one central location, which would be the Nix building. There's some other resources that currently exist there that also we're able to leverage as well. And so that's what I'm asking for the board's consideration, and I can't move forward without the board's giving approval of that.
Questions or comments? Are there questions? Yes, ma'am.
Just for clarity, we have 114 students there?
There's no students there now.
I mean, identified. Oh. 9th and 10th grade repeaters, and that's the Refocus Academy. And then Beyond the Bell Academy is for 10th, 11th and 12th. Keisha? 11th and 12th? Okay.
And just for the record, guys, these programs existed already. These are not additions. They just existed in different parts of the county and were initially established by 3 separate school districts. So, again, this is part of the consolidation process. And I believe Dr. Quinn had a question.
Dr. Quinn, yes.
Yes, ma'am, I have a question. Going back to the size of the district, the county, you're going to provide transportation for these children from way down past Holly Hill or past HKT to Orangeburg every day? Is that going to be the plan? That's my first part of my question.
Yes, sir. Currently, in the past years, transportation was provided from the Holly Hill area to Orangeburg as already. The transportation that was not provided was from Holly Hill over to Cope. So, yes, sir, we're able to get them from the Cope HKT area to Orangeburg proper and from Holly Hill to Orangeburg proper as well. So we will provide transportation to all students that qualified and needed the services under this particular model and the change in location.
Okay, so that's what, about 45 minutes each way, each day for them? Is that right? And kids from HKT and the others and around Springfield area also?
Well,
because those went down to the Star Center at Cope before. And it looks to me like what this consolidation is turning into is a centralized Orangeburg. And I guess the focus in the future will be to send all the children to Orangeburg. Because if you're going to send children who are going to the alternative school from Holly Hill, Springfield, Norway to Orangeburg for something, who's going to stop them or who's going to stop us from sending children K through 12 from all these areas of the county to Orangeburg? That was one of the protests I had against consolidation to start with, but I see this coming down the road.
That's his opinion. Thank you. Other comments? Question?
Yes, I have a question. No,
yes, ma'am, Ms. Pelzer.
Maybe a question and a comment. I like the idea that, we're kind of like rearranging things and refocusing and, trying to put things in place for our children that don't want to do the normal kind of stuff, because a lot of us are like that. And some of us, we will conform. Then there are the other kids, because I had a child like that who did not want to conform. But what I want to say is thank you so very much for the time and effort that you're putting into doing what you're doing for our children. But this is what I would like to hear the next time you do a presentation. What is special about your programs for these kids? Because these are some special kind of kids you're talking about. I'm telling you, they don't see things the way we see things. They don't want the normal stuff. They want stuff, but they don't want the normal stuff. So what I want to see is what's special about your program for these special children that we are getting ready to try to serve. That's what I would like to see.
Yes, ma'am. Great point. As you guys know a little bit of my background, I spent 6 years of my career in alternative school, basically as a classified and also a director as well. So you're exactly right, Ms. Pelzer. these are special children who are divergent learners. You also are aware that my master's is in divergent learning. So as we sat down and met, and again, in a board meeting, sometimes we don't get an opportunity to capture all the details. But when you have individual students with individual personalized needs, Orangeburg historically has done a good job of this as well, looking at how do we pattern the home lives. We mentioned social workers. We mentioned those things in the program as well, which is those individuals who were put at this location. Mentorships. All those things would be a part of this program because it's a part of educating the alternative child. The child that is bright, but they're just not performing because of their individual circumstances. We have to fill that gap. So that is a unique thing that we have to communicate, and that's why we target those things. And there's a interview process that's in place as well that involves a parent and their engagement. But we also talked about tiering parents as well to help our parents help their children because they're with them every day, and they may reach their wits' end and want to throw their hands up. And rightfully so, they're tired, they've been doing it. So how can we help them as well? So it's about treating the system and operating from a holistic perspective, the cognitive, social, physical, and emotional aspect of children. So you're exactly right, and we can, it involves those things in the detailed document that they gave me. It's probably a 12-page document, and it has those things in place as we read through to determine this program. So thank you for that input, and you're exactly right.
Dr. Brosson?
And I would also like to say, Dr. Foster, that I'm grateful that we are moving forward to serve those students who do not function well in the regular setting. I, too, have been a principal in an alternative school, which was some of my most rewarding years. And I would rather that we're proactive rather than to have this large population of students, because these are the students that usually become dropouts. And so if we can get them to a high school diploma, then I think that we can pat ourselves on the back. But I'm grateful that we're moving in this direction.
Question, Madam Chair.
Reverend Brown?
Comment, Madam Chair, Dr. Foster, trustees. I'd just like the record to reflect that I think it was an excellent presentation, and I understand what you're doing, you're looking to do. It's not so much as looking at moving to one area, but that you're using our resources to the best for everyone. I want the record to reflect that's what I heard and what I understand. Can I get amen?
Ms. Edwards.
Dr. Foster, the one thing that I love about what I just heard tonight, the two people that did the presentation, I know them well, and I know their passion. And when you bring passion to it, it's going to be a great thing. But I just want to ask one question. I thought I heard, sir, you said like 114. Was that a number I heard?
Yes, ma'am. Those were students that were identified as 19th century repeaters.
Okay.
Those are the target population for the high school or refocus.
Okay. Thank you.
Now that's including what we get. Those are repeaters in 19th century.
And that will be for refocus. Okay, thank you.
We're trying to get those students who have fallen behind early back on track as quickly as possible. Which will impact our graduation rate, which will impact the producing of productive citizens in Orangeburg is what we're trying to do. And I can't wait to 12th grade to pick up 3 years. I try to catch it in 9 or 10. So again, we have to treat the whole community and produce individuals who will help continue to move this community forward beyond high school.
Like you said, Dr. Foster, all means all. Every kid.
I have a question or comment. Beyond the Bell Academy, an evening program, so 11th and 12th graders. So how will these students get to the building?
From teachers who are certified in their content areas, and so they're serving as facilitators because these
and we're just trying to help them to stay in school and get to the point of graduating.
So you had this program before?
Yes, I've been
Okay.
serving these kids since 2012.
Okay,
Yes.
because see, before coming to one district,
yes.
we did not have this in Consolidated 4.
Yes.
So I can probably see a problem for parents getting their children to Nick's, you're saying? That's where be housed at Nick's?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the proposal.
That's the proposal, is to house all those services at Nick's. Again, the whole, Madam Chair, when I spoke about this program, Mrs. Lawrence informed me that some cases in the past where a young lady may have had a child, but she's right on the verge of trying to graduate, and due to circumstances, many of them may drop out because of child care issues. So this allows that student who, when mom's at work in the day, can keep their child, and the mom gets home, she may borrow mom's car and drive to the program and still have the opportunity to continue their education. So it is not just shared. These are unique circumstances. So yes, ma'am, that is a concern.
Well, we didn't have this, as I stated, in Consolidated 4, but those students were given services at the Star Center, at the alternative school. So, and also, do you have any more PowerPoints? We don't have that packet.
Yeah, we're going to get the, Ms. Harrison will make the copies for y'all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions or comments?
Madam Chair, I would just like to thank you for the change of name, Refocus Academy, thumbs up, and Beyond the Bell. Just kudos to you guys. Thank you so much.
Madam Chair, I was just going to say exactly what Ms. Carson said about the naming, because we all know words are powerful. So it makes a difference what wordings we use. And Ms. Pelzer was saying these are some unique people. These are, these are people that were created just like we were. They just may be on a different path, but headed in the same direction. And so I definitely want to thank, because sometimes we reach out to those people that are always in the gifted and talented, and when you sit down and you check 5 years after they graduated, it's to be some of those people that we kind of thought that weren't going to. And so thank you so much. And I was just sitting over here, didn't want to say anything, but I was like, I have to say this. These are people just like you and I. They were created just like you and I, but they're just on a different path, but heading in the same direction. But thank you again.
Yes, and I too have worked as a principal in the alternative setting, and we need special people to work with those children. We need special people because they know when we are real and when we're not. We got to be genuine with those children, those young people.
And a lot of them are gifted and talented.
Amen.
That's it. Madam Chair, one other thing, if I could say, when we're talking about getting everyone in one location, we have to realize that this consolidation was for our students, not just your student, not just your nephew, not just your set. It's for our students. So our students contain of the whole Orangeburg County. So we make provisions when it's necessary.
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to commend you all for keeping students first and providing opportunities.
I love it.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I would need a motion in order to move forward with this, since this is a change in location and some other pertinent things. Again, I appreciate the board's consideration and seeing what and how we can benefit our students in doing this. And our goal, again, is to make this the ideal circumstance where no child, regardless of where they live, would lose out. And we'll continue to work to make that a reality.
Okay, other questions or comments? Dr. Quinn, anything else?
No, ma'am. Okay.
All right, at this time, we will entertain a motion. Tell me what your motion is, Dr. Paulson. What you want us to do? Give you the, just tell us what the motion is.
The authority to restructure and relocate our alternative programs in Orangeburg County.
Madam Chair, so moved that we authorize Dr. Foster and our Student Service Department to move forward relocating our alternative services to the area in Orangeburg NICS.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we give Dr. Foster and the principals of these different programs to relocate our students to NICS. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, let it be known by a show of hands. Thank you. Ms. Marie? Okay. Dr. Quinn?
I'm opposed.
All right. Thank you. The motion was carried. Thank you. All right. Next, we have National Suicide.
Yes. September is, good evening once again. September is Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, suicide is the second leading cause of death for individuals ages 10 through 34, and is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. The Student Service Department is making certain to provide support in social and emotional needs. The Social Service Division of the Student Service Department spearheaded an all-in walk to fight against suicide. Various walks and activities took place at many of our area schools and the walking trail at the Regional Medical Center. Faculty and staff at Edisto Primary School, Melisham Elementary School, Howard Middle School, and OW High School are featured in the video you are about to see. We also had students at Edisto Primary School participated virtually. Let's take a look at the video.
Suicide is very important. You never know what a person is going through, and you don't have the opportunity to really walk in their shoes. And even behind the smiles and the laughter, a lot of times there's a lot of pain and frustration. So we never know what a person is dealing with. And some may say, well, what does a walk do? A walk brings awareness.
We're doing it with a purpose.
dejando atrás a familiares y amigos a navegar esta tragedia solos. En muchos casos, los amigos y familiares se quedan sin respuestas a por qué ha pasado. Y muy a menudo los sentimientos de vergüenza y debido a prejuicios los previenen de expresar sus sentimientos abiertamente. En septiembre es el mes nacional de prevenir suicidios. Hay que hacer nuestra misión, hacer una diferencia hoy.
Make it your mission to do something to help someone today. Tomorrow may be too late.
The Social Service Division, under the leadership of Ms. Lakeisha Hart, the coordinator, will continue to increase awareness of suicide. Thank you all so much.
Very kindly also. Is that it, Dr. Calloway? Anything else on? That's it? Thank you. We want to say thank all of you for your presentations tonight.
Madam Chair, can I add one other thing that,
Yes,
that you
sir.
didn't see on here in 10 seconds? There's also some classroom lessons that guidance counselors were doing with students on suicide and families as well that you didn't get an opportunity to see. But when I watched the video and I saw the parents and the students there together virtually, it touched my heart to make sure, because it's difficult doing a virtual platform, but our schools are trying to make things as normal as possible to still provide that support, because that's been a concern, is when students are on virtual, are we still caring for that emotional part of our children? So they're doing that. But to see the parents, and I saw dads on there with their sons and their small sons, listening to the lessons and hearing about how important that was. So, it goes back to our goal to educate the entire child. So thank you guys for doing a wonderful job.
Yes, ma'am.
That's one of our National School Board Association bullet, suicide prevention. And to all of us, like Ms. Williams said, when someone is reaching out to you, listen. You never know that you may save that person's life. Listen.
Yes, ma'am. So true. Any other comments? If not, thank you so very kindly again. Now we are down to the operations update.
Madam Chair, board members, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about a few updates that we have in the operations department. I'm going to go over 3 items with you. First one is the OW HVAC replacement that we've talked about a few times. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the capital funds plan for 2020, 2021, and as well as our new grounds vendor. So as you recall, we have originally funded the project at $5 million to replace the HVAC at Orangeburg Wilkinson High School. We are recommending that we move from a replacement scope to a repair scope, which means that instead of going through a full replacement of every single piece of that HVAC system, that we work on repairing the things that we need to be able to repair, which would in effect cost less money right now. And then it would also allow us to use those funds not expended on the HVAC repair for other capital projects around the district. It also eliminates the need for using an architect and approval from OSF to replace the entire HVAC system. Instead, we would just repair as those units, and we would try to remove some of the older ones, and we can do a unit for unit replacement in some cases instead of having to do it for the entire system. And right now we would look to not exceed the $5 million. We would try to budget that maybe around 20% of that, so that the other 80% could be used for other capital projects. And because the things I'm talking about are very different, I think it would be easier if I take questions at the end of this section so that we don't have to jump back to it at the end. So are there questions in regards to moving from a complete replacement to a repair on the OWHVAC?
Questions, comments? Okay.
All right, so our capital funds plan, as we have mentioned to you all in the past, this year we were able to raise $4 million for capital funds from the sale of bonds. In your packet, you all have a breakdown of our intention of how we would like to allocate those funds to different areas for capital projects around the county. You can see on that list that there are 11 categories of projects.
and it has them broken down: roofing projects, HVAC, gym floors, paving, athletic facilities, and maintenance equipment among those. Our plan is to go forward with this year with the amounts allocated from that $4 million. You can see how that is broken down. And then we will then generate a 5-year plan that will allow us to project 5 years so that we know, A, which funds we'll have to use for capital funds and how much each year, and then be able to put timelines to replacing and repairing and doing things in larger scale across the county over a 5-year time period. That would be following a complete facility study that would need to be done. That would include things looking at the age of all of our systems, our buildings, population in the buildings, percentage of the building being used, and all of those different things would be part of that complete facility study. And so we want you to know how we're intending to use the $4 million this year into the different categories. We've talked to you before that we identify those projects along with our principals. They'll get a survey to give us some feedback as to what projects need to be completed in their facilities, and then we will also then have to prioritize that, because obviously $4 million, although it is a lot of money, it does not meet all of the needs that we have in the district for all the things that we need to do.
Can I add something there, Mr. Grant, if you allow?
Yes, sir.
By having a 5-year plan, once we establish it next year, we will always have a 5-year plan. So the next year, we will bring forth the 6th year every single year. So we have a strategic plan and can show this community that we're being good stewards of taxpayer dollars, but there are a lot of facility needs across this county. Some large, some are just simply needed, like painting. Large-scale painting, and I'm not speaking just to paint a wall or a wing. Some of our schools need complete painting overhauls. So if we're able to put in a plan a painting budget, then come back and identify those schools on a rotational basis, in a few years down the line, we're able to then get all of our schools on a painting rotation, and we can keep them up. Our principals have asked me everywhere I've gone, how can I help you? And they say, well, I need some painting. Flooring, making sure that our floors and tile in our building, if it's reached its lifetime, we need to pull that tile up and put it down so we can take care of the buildings that we have. But we have to have a plan of how to fund those projects across this county. So this is what this is the beginning of, and to allocate those funds for those maintenance projects, because I know that we can show this community that we can take care of what we have, and we can get them up to a point where we're proud and that it represents what we want to represent throughout this community as people drive through. So that's the reason for the structure of the facilities plan, to give you all a 5-year program and the community a 5-year program so they'll know what's next on the docket.
Thank you. And if there are no questions, I'll move on to the final part of this. Are there any questions in regards to the allocation of those funds for this year? All right. So we have a new grounds vendor, and in your packet you have 3 items relating to this. First of all, you have the general grounds maintenance proposal that we brought to you back on July 14th. This is just a reminder of how we were restructuring some of that department that worked with grounds into other roles. The second item that you have inside of your packet is a scope of work. And all of our principals received this in their e-communications last week, and it is the scope of work of what every school and location can expect for our grounds to do. So not just cutting the grass and blowing the grass off, but also the things like pruning, replacing mulch, doing the beds, helping after if there's any damage from any weather event to come back and do those things. So that entire scope has been provided to our principals so they know what to be looking for on their campuses, because obviously they're the ones that will be there. And then the third item that you have in your packet is our weekly calendar. The vendor, AccuSweep, has given us, they're going to be able to do everything with 2 crews, and you'll see a spreadsheet that has the weekly calendar so that our principals have this as well. They know what day to expect the grounds crew on the same day at their facility every week. So they began yesterday.
And so over the course of the last 2 days, I think they have been to close to 14 of our facilities to begin working on the grounds and taking that over. Again, the current staff was repurposed, and our principals know their schedule. This has been provided to them, as well as the scope of work, so that they can help us as we're checking to make sure that that vendor is doing the work that we need them to do. Again, as Dr. Foster pointed out, we want to show that we know how to take care of the facilities, and this is one of those ways that we're going to be able to do that and make sure that everybody knows what's expected. If you're at the building level, you know what is expected of your grounds, and we're going to show that we do know what we're doing and that we're able to take care of what we have. Are there any questions in relations to the grounds vendor?
So, Madam Chair, if you don't mind, this is just really information. I said before that, my goal is you tell people what you're going to do, you update them, and then you tell them when it's done. So on the 14th, as Mr. Grant mentioned, the board heard the proposal and gave me the green light unanimously to move forward with this. And now that it's actual up and functional, this is just my method of coming back, telling you all that it's done and that we fulfilled that courtesy that the board had granted in that regard. And those individuals who were in those current positions have been repurposed. They're still with the district. And this will hopefully give us some additional services, but it will also give us an opportunity to fill some vacancies in custodial positions in our buildings to help with the cleanliness as we hopefully somehow have to move back to a face-to-face model and keep people safe. So this is just a effort in me coming back saying I've done what I said and what you guys gave me the authority to do.
Madam Chair, are these the schools that AccuSuite will be servicing?
That is correct.
Are these the only ones they will be servicing?
Correct. So if you remember, all of our high schools are going to have site maintenance. Now, there are two sheets. There's a crew 1 and a crew 2. You should have two separate
Two of these?
sheets.
This like this bit.
Mm-hmm. You should have two separate ones of those. So the only schools not included on here are the high schools because they all have site maintenance personnel. And those folks are in charge of doing the grounds at the high school.
I don't think they have one sheet.
No, we have it. It's in there, baby.
Yeah, this one. Black and white.
Black and white.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking. Facilities, projects.
You should have two of these schools.
It's only one. Oh, no, I don't have two of those.
I don't have two of those.
So we'll get you guys a
I
second.
think it's the top group. The second one has green.
No, I only have one.
We only have one color coded.
That's what.
We'll send you guys a second
Okay.
schedule for the remainder.
That's why it's a question. That's why I asked that question.
Yeah, but see, he had it here, so I thought he didn't list them.
Ms. Goodwin, you had a question?
It was the same question.
That was, okay.
Yeah, he had the high school.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
So I thought he didn't list them. That's what I thought.
So yes, when you see both sheets, you'll see that all of our sites are being serviced
Okay.
with the exception of our high schools.
All right.
Now you talking.
Question, Dr. Quinn?
Yes, ma'am. I don't have that packet, but that's okay. I didn't get it by email. But when you say high schools, does that include our 3 K-12 sites, considering them a high school, or where do they fall in that? That would be Branchville, Bowman, and HKT.
Correct. So those sites will have one person dedicated to the entire campus. And so when I say high schools, I should say the campus.
So the AccuSuite wouldn't take care of HKT, Bowman, and Branchville.
Yes, they have their own person 5 days a week.
Their own person. And then we do that also with North and Dover. The same one person who handles North that works for us also does Dover as well, since those campuses are so close.
Other questions? No other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Finance update.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Orangeburg County School Board of Trustees. Tonight, I'd like to take this moment to acknowledge and celebrate the work of teachers, principals, parents, support staff, community and faith-based leaders who all pulled together to keep students as a top priority. I'd also like to thank each board member individually and collectively for the opportunity to work with and beside you as interim superintendent. The board is prepared the way for educational success that will benefit students and this community for many generations to come. I am humbled to have shared this part of the journey with you. The community is fortunate to have you on this board, and Dr. Foster can feel confident that he is well positioned for the future and work with a board that is very courageous. There have been many wins for students in the community as we began with the theme, We Are One. Orangeburg County School District is working to provide an education for all students through a period of global pandemic and the nationwide civil unrest. We are able to do so because we are one. We've shared in the sacrifices and the successes as one, and together we will continue to get better and better at serving the needs of and working for all children. So tonight I bid you Godspeed, and I appreciate all the opportunities. And I'll now turn it over to David Lodeholt, our former interim finance director, who will share information on the budget.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Foster. I too would like to say thank you. This has been a great opportunity to work with y'all in this historic time in Orangeburg. I think Dr. Foster and his staff are well positioned. He has a great crew backing him up, and they're ready to go and move forward with this consolidation. There were a couple of things we wanted to point out tonight, and Dr. Foster and his staff are working on these and headed in the right direction with them. But I came in mid-February. We started looking in mid-March. We had about 8 months worth of expenses behind us and about 7 months worth of revenue that we had received. So we started evaluating the budget at that time. We needed to align the expenses in the budget with how we were actually expending them, and we needed to reconcile revenue. As we worked through the process in March on into April, we started realizing something probably not right here with revenue. We look okay on expenses, they just out of line a little bit, but the revenue probably isn't where it needs to be. So in our investigation from around the 1st of April through mid-June, we started trying to find out, is the money in? Is the county collecting it? We just hadn't gotten the payment yet? Or is the value of the mill not what we anticipated it was going to be? So we started investigating first what the value of our mill was for Orangeburg School District. We ended up getting 4 different versions of what a value of a mill was. The district budget was based on $250,000 a mill, and that was conservative, being we had told the value of a mill was $276,000. The district budgeted on $250,000. We got $268,000 was the value. We got $281,000, and the final value we got was $313,000. So we couldn't get consistent there. We backed up a little bit and ended up receiving this data from the State Department of Education, from DOR through the State Department. And this is information that the county provides to DOR that backed up the value of a mill in Orangeburg County was $313,000, almost $314,000. That's the total value of a mill in the county. That's what your debt service would bring in. If you collected it at about 95%, debt service would bring in about $298,000 per mill. An operational mill is a good bit lower than that. You have to back out 4% owner-occupied property and fee in lieu of property in the county, which brings 100% value of an operational mill down to about $212,000. At a 95% collection rate, that brings in about $201,000 a mill. So that's where we came out and said, so probably a value of a mill is about $200,000, $201,000. We looked at what we had collected or what we had been paid, and that was coming in pretty close. We went back, tracked down the actual statute that formed the consolidated Orangeburg district. And Section 5 talks about how was the number of mills that could be levied for the 1920 budget actually began with. And in the statute, it says, you take the local revenue collected by all three districts in 2018 school year, you divide it by the value of a mill, and that tells you where you can begin levying mills for the 1920 school year. There's a provision in there, and how you increase those number of mills is based on Act 388, which gives you the opportunity to go up growth and CPI, and you can add no more than 2 mills to that per the legislation. For 2021 school year, that would mean Orangeburg could levy 183 mills for operations. So Dr. Foster got here, I think it was his first day here, he sat down with me and asked me what the challenges were, and I said, welcome to Orangeburg, Dr. Foster. You might have an $8 million shortfall in revenue. So, of course, he doesn't want a problem without a solution, or how do we figure out what the problem was? I went through what we had got as a mill value, and he proceeded to set up some meetings. We met with a lot of different people here in the community. One of the first meetings Dr. Foster had, because I couldn't put my hands on how the district followed the legislation to come up with the beginning number of mills. One of the first meetings Dr. Foster had, he came back and he handed me a document he had received, and it was from the finance committee of the transition committee, and lo and behold, there it was, where they went through the process of calculating how many mills you could start with. They followed the process properly. Probably the only flaw in their process was they used a mill value of $281,000 instead of closer to around $200,000, which puts you in the hole from the beginning of shorting you about 42 mills you were able to levy. So right now, that's where we are. Dr. Foster's picked the ball up with his staff, and they're running with it from here. But that's what's created, that we finally dug into and created what looked like was about an $8.5 million shortfall in revenue. If you'll remember, as individual districts, y'all had operational millage, and then you had a 25 mil equalization mill, okay? Everybody paid tax on that 25 mills. In the legislation, that 25 mills was moved over to where homeowners didn't pay the tax on the 25 mills anymore. So it didn't take 25 mills to generate $7.5 million anymore. It took about 37 mills. And that's basically what created the shortfall. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Gist. Like I said, Dr. Foster and his staff have taken this now and run with it. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Madam Chair, Board of Trustees, Dr. Foster, as Mr. Lodholt said, we've met with several different agencies, several different people to try to figure out exactly how do we address this issue. This is an issue from the 1920 year that we're still trying to address. So we've met with the Superintendent Spearman, the Finance Division at the Department of Education, the Fiscal and State Accountability Division at the Department of Education, the county officials, as well as members of the legislative body. After having several meetings with the county offices, it was determined that the county discovered funds that were actually due to the district from both 1819 and 1920. We collected about $1.7 million in the month of August that was due to the district in tax collections for last year. Then we also collected an additional $1.2 million that was due to the district from FY 18-19 and 19-20. And they discovered that funding by doing a reconciliation on their books on the county side. So we received $1.2 million that should have been received either in 18-19 or 19-20. We are still set to receive an additional $900,000 in tax collections from the county that we hope to receive by the end of this week. So during our meeting at the county offices last week, the county treasurer mentioned an option that the district could possibly use the district sinking fund balance, which is currently $5.2 million. However, it's recommended that only $2.2 million be used, with $3 million remaining in the fund to service our debt instruments that we currently have. We're still researching this option. However, we do know that it requires approval by the legislative body. All right. During our meeting with the State Department, it was determined that we can possibly act on the funding flexibility options of up to about $1.5 million. So with the work that we've done, and if all of our requests are approved by the state, we'll be able to reduce the deficit down to about $4.4 million. This is without the use of the district sinking fund balance that's at the county. So I just wanted to make you aware that there is a possibility of having to use the general fund balance to balance and close out the 19-20 school year. Just be aware that the financial information that we provided tonight is all preliminary figures. There are other factors that may affect this total on both the revenue and the expenditure side. The auditor is scheduled to come back during the week of October 21st. The final audit report is due to the State Department of Education by December 1st, and at that time, we will have our final audited figures for 19-20. All right.
So, Madam Chair, members of the board, Ms. Gist, thank you. Dr. Lodo, thank you as well. So this is where we are. You've heard how we've been working tirelessly to first of all, learn and figure out where things were. You know, consolidation is never an easy task. And I don't know that pointing fingers in either direction will benefit, or, you know, if that's even the proper approach. However, because every entity had good intentions and was moving forward with those intentions in mind for serving students and this community. You know, the county was going through a reauthorization and they had some turnover, and then you have a pandemic. So you have every opportunity for things to be missed and or misinterpreted. Nevertheless, you know, I tell people all the time, I didn't bring this in my truck with me. It was here when I got here, but I didn't bring any solutions with me as well. Those are here as well. The solutions are here. And the biggest question is now that we've done this, then what's the plan forward? So you've heard the plan now of how we're trying to close the gap that was here once we got here. And my finance team has done a great job of really turning over every pillow cushion, talking to everybody that we can talk to, finding every flexible measure to utilize those things to close the old gap. And we're going to continue to look at that and do that. But there's also a circumstance that we have to deal with as well. That closes the old gap that was here. So if you were in a $8 million hole in the past, if you continue as you were, you may inherit the same $8 million hole moving forward. So it's two-part. We've worked on that part of how we can close that hole, but now we have to work on the second part of how we bring forth a solid, balanced budget for this board to consider for the 2021 school year. And so we're working on that, and that's something that we've sat down and been working on days after day on, looking at our staffing levels, looking at where things are, and possibly how we can fit individuals into those correct funding sources. Those that belong in special revenue funds, make sure they are on special revenue funds and not sitting on the general fund, but clean up our data to make sure that position control in our accounting systems are appropriate and correct, and that we can follow every single individual. Mrs. Gist explains it very well when she says an FTE is like a seat in a stadium. You know, the seat stays there. The individual may be different in that seat. But when we start to pick up and move seats, then you may have more seats in one section and not enough in another. But the seat stays. So we just have to make sure that the seat stays and we get the people in the right seats so that we can maximize those the resources in the school district. So yes, ma'am, and yes, sir, it will require me to do some shifting across the district with people to make sure that also that not only is it a budget situation, but also we're providing equal and adequate services to students as well. So that's the plan moving forward, and I'll present those to the board in more detail. But I wanted to make sure that the board understood where we were and that we are working diligently to produce that plan. And hopefully we'll go before the delegation and present to them a plan as well to help them see how we can come together and work with what was handed to us when we got here. So at this time, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Questions? Question, Dr. O'Quinn?
No, ma'am.
Comments? If not, we would like to thank Dr. Johnson. When he came in and he had some work to do, and he's told me he knew a person that could come and help us get it done, Mr. Lodehope. So we thank you, too, for coming in and working with us on the hard work that you guys have done, and also to our present staff, Ms. Gist and Ms. Sanders and some others back there, Dr. Foster. Thank you very kindly, and we hope next time we know what a meal is. We hope we'll find out what it is. So thank you so much for the hard work that you're doing. Let's give them a hand. And Dr. Johnson and Mr. Lodehope, come back to see us anytime. Okay, next we have board policy first reading.
Good evening, Chair Tyler, Board of Trustees, Dr. Foster. By way of background, as you recall, we're in the process of reviewing policies, introducing new policies, and revising existing policies. So tonight I'm bringing to you school board operations and governance policies. I have 4 of them, and you have them in your packet. School board operational goals, board self-evaluation, board legal status, and board powers and duties. These policies are a part of the introduction of Section B, which is school board governance and operations. They are standard policies every school district has for operating procedures. They simply lay out operational goals of the board, the self-evaluation procedures and processes, the legal status of the board, and the duties and responsibilities. I'm asking that you review these policies between tonight's meeting and the next one to accept these as first reading. If there are any changes that are needed, I'll be happy to make those and bring them back at our next board meeting. Yes.
I will entertain a motion for first reading of policy BA, BAA, BB, BBA.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept draft policies BA, School Board Operation Goals, BAA, Board Self-Evaluation, BB, Board Legal Status, and BBA, Board Powers and Duties as first reading.
Second. It has been moved and properly second that we accept policies BA, School Board Operation Goals, BAA, Board Self-Evaluation, BB, Board Legal Status, and BBA, Board Power and Duties. Are there any questions or comments? All in favor, let it be known by a show of hands.
As first reading.
Show of hands. Dr. O'Quinn?
In favor.
Okay, thank you. First reading. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have communication.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the board, and Dr. Foster. Thank you for the opportunity to just briefly provide a few updates on communications and business and community partnerships. One of the most important things that we can do as a school system is to not only communicate outwardly with our school board and with our students and families, but also to communicate extremely well internally. It's extremely important for an organization of our size to be able to speak with a common voice, and for everybody, especially our building level leaders, to know what's going on. There is a lot discussed in these school board meetings, but I will tell you there is a lot more that goes on that we just bring you the highlights here. And I can only imagine the information overload that some of our principals may feel from time to time. And so one of the things that we've worked on as a senior leadership team is to consolidate that bombarding of emails that our principals and our district leaders are receiving. And so instead of each of us sending emails and requests to principals, each week we're streamlining that, putting all of that into a folder and sending out a weekly communications memo on Wednesdays. And that has an update from each department, which has some information to share, or a survey request to be completed, or just some information about the ongoings of their department. It has gone over extremely well with our principals. They're very appreciative to have all of that information in one consolidated place and to have a couple of less emails in their inbox. Many of you joined us last Monday for a press conference. It was my first with the school district, and it was for our Smart Virtual Health Collaborative. And that's a collaborative that we've developed with Palmetto Care Connections, which is a nonprofit organization that is helping our local health care providers provide telehealth services. We joined in partnership with PCC, as well as RMC, the Family Health Center, and Bamberg Family Practice, and a few others that are just about to come on board to put an icon on our student devices, which will really allow more access to students and families throughout our communities. And so that they can just click on that icon and then select from a series of providers of their choice, allowing increased access of healthcare services to not only our students, but also their families, their brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, and neighbors. So we were very proud to be able just to provide access to students. We're certainly not providing the medical care, but just providing that icon, which is our Smart Virtual Health Collaborative icon, on all student devices so that we make sure students and their families have access to health care. And the last update from me tonight is, I know that you probably have already seen that community feedback and input is extremely important to Dr. Foster, and so I'm very excited to be working hand in hand with him to establish some advisory councils. You can get a lot of feedback from a survey, but there's nothing like smaller groups of people really engaging and sharing their ideas. And so Dr. Foster plans to set these up for students, so one student per school from every grade level, grades 3 and up. One for teachers, so we would meet with Teachers of the Year. One for parents, and that would probably consist of our School Improvement Council Chair and PTO President. One for business partners. Our schools have a wealth of resources, many just right down the street, or whose their parents, maybe they work for an organization that would like to work in partnership with our schools. Dr. Foster wants our students to be resources and solutions to area workforce needs, but it's very difficult to be that if we don't know what the issues are and what the needs are of our business community. And then also of our faith-based leaders. So not just maybe where we go to church or where Dr. Foster goes to church, but across all denominations. Our students and families come from a broad array of different backgrounds, and we want to make sure that we're partnering with those faith-based leaders in providing the best possible services to our students. So we have discussed this very briefly in the communications memo. We will again tomorrow during the principals meeting, and then we'll be working hand in hand with our principals to get those recommendations in. But certainly if we have faith-based leaders or business leaders out there who are hearing this meeting tonight, feel free to contact me. The best way to do so right now would be by sending an email to public.relations@ocsdsc.org. And we would love to have as much participation from as many different individuals who want to be part of helping our students grow and learn. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for personnel recommendation, legal advice on personnel matters, discussion of legal matters.
Madam Chair, I move that we enter into executive session to discuss personnel recommendation, legal advice on personnel matters, and discussion of legal matters.
Second.
Been moved and properly second that we enter into the executive session for personnel recommendations, legal advice on personnel matters, and discussion of legal matters. All in favor, let me know by show of hands. Any opposes? Dr. Quinn, do you agree?
In favor.
Thank you. into open session.
Madam Chair, so move that we come out of the executive session and enter back into open session at this time.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second that we return from executive session back to open session. All in favor, let it be known by a show of hand. Any opposes? Dr. Quinn? Thank you very kindly. At this time, we will entertain any action required from executive session.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the recommendation for personnel employment.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we accept the recommendation coming from Mr. Holliday and the superintendent on the employment. Any questions or comments? All in favor of the recommendation, let me know by a show of hands. Any opposes? Dr. Quinn? Thank you. Okay, any other?
Madam Chair, due to the severe financial constraint resulting from our current and anticipated budget shortfalls as discussed during board meeting tonight, I move that we approve the superintendent recommendation to eliminate said classified position effectively immediately.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second that we accept the recommendation coming from the superintendent pertaining to the financial constraints immediately. All in favor? Let me know by show of hand. Any opposes? Dr. O'Quinn?
I'm opposed.
Okay, thank you. Motion passed. Anything else?
Yes. Legal advice on personnel matter.
Okay.
I got to take a vote on personnel
Okay,
matter.
go ahead. At this time, we will entertain a motion for discussion on legal advice, personnel matter.
Take a vote.
Yes, ma'am.
We have two options. Madam Chair, I move that we accept the superintendent recommendation regarding employees A and deny employee A request to be heard regarding this matter by the Board of Trustees.
Do we have a second? It has been moved and properly second that we accept this recommendation coming from the superintendent not to hear employee A a hearing before the board. All in favor? Let me know by a show of hands. All in favor not to hear this employee grievance? Let it be known by a show of hands. 1, 2, 3. Dr. O'Quinn?
I'm in favor.
4. Okay, any opposes? Let it be known by a show of hands.
That option too.
We'll know if
Gotta
we,
carry that one first.
if
Carry that
this one carries it, we won't need option 2. That was 4 not to hear. Opposes? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Bridget.
4.
Mm-hmm.
I'll break the tie and say we'll hear him. Okay, so 5-4 to hear.
Yes, sir, Madam Chair, members of the board. I would like to inform the board that I would like to announce to the community that as we had in our plan, September 28th was the date that we would like to try to return to some type of face-to-face and or hybrid model. But I'd like to inform the board that we're going to announce that we will not go back in a face-to-face or hybrid model. We have a meeting with the State Department on Thursday. What I would ask is that we're able to hear the information from the State Department and then come back and give the community an opportunity to have a confirmed deadline as to when we would allow individuals to move into any kind of face-to-face after that meeting.
Okay. And also, I would like to recommend that we, after your meeting on Thursday, that we have a call board meeting on September 25th at 6 o'clock. Is that okay with the board members? After Dr. Foster has met with person from the State Department on Thursday, that we would come back together on Friday at 6 o'clock. And I think, Dr. Quinn, you're going to be one of the representatives, and Reverend Brown with Dr. Foster on Thursday? Yes, ma'am. Thank you very kindly. Any other questions or comments? If not, we need to get a date to meet with employee A.
That's a hearing. It's
Okay. So you'll let them know? Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very kindly. Are there any announcements at this time?
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
If we would keep the Crum family, one of the board members from Dorchester, Angie Crum, passed away. If we would keep the Crum family lifted up.
Thank you. Okay. Any other announcements? She was a board member, you said?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Sorry to hear that. Okay, well, board meeting, special call meeting on the 25th at 6 o'clock. If that's it, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, to move at this time, we adjourn until our special call meeting on the 25th.
All in favor, let it be known by show of hand. Opposes? Dr. Quinn? Thank you. All right. Good night. Drive careful. Going home.
What time is the special call? 6 o'clock.